Let's talk about WrestleMania for a minute because, it's clear after you win the tag straps after Royal Rumble, I think everybody knows like the chart and the course for WrestleMania starts to be defined a little bit after Royal Rumble. So people have a good idea of what they're going to be doing. So it does make sense that you would think, okay, I'm going to be in a tag match for this WrestleMania. Now, the reason I bring that up is Kevin Nash has said on multiple shoot interviews back before guaranteed contracts, you didn't really know what kind of year you were going to have until you got your WrestleMania payday. It could make or break your whole year. But when you find out that, all right, well, I'm going to be in a tag match for this WrestleMania, were you concerned how that might affect your payoff or no?
Not really, because this is, to me, when things really started to transition as far as that, because the first year of monthly pay-per-views in your house, would that have been 95?
Yep.
96. So probably 96. You can just kind of see that the transition had taken place, that outside of WrestleMania, even SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, those didn't have near the cachet that they had when there was just 4. And I kind of think that was the very, very beginning of that, if that makes sense, in that I wasn't overly concerned, and I was elated in a lot of ways that, okay, they put the belts on us. What is this, January?
Yeah.
January. All right. I'm thinking if we have a tag title match, we might not lose at Mania at this point. So no, but I think Kevin, certainly through 95, 96, probably even still, you knew that did dictate everything. Payoffs, where you were going, where you were thought about from the very top of the management system. You just kind of knew your lot on the card. That began to change, in my opinion, 97, 98. That again, it was Mania and everything else.
We're finally here. It's WrestleMania 15. I mean, you were a part of WrestleMania way back when. WrestleMania week for you started at WrestleMania 10, I believe. And your match got cut just moments before you were supposed to go to the ring because Shawn and Razor went a little long and they made history, but it cost you your first WrestleMania match. By the time WrestleMania 15 rolls around 5 years later, the company's in another stratosphere. We know these days, WrestleMania is like a week-long event. What was it like in 1999? Just the pandemonium and all the events and all the media and all the schedule demands you would have had compared to just a handful of years prior.
So again, this is a transition period. You got to remember, and I'm glad in this episode we touched on it. So the Philadelphia, it went from the Spectrum, Wells Fargo. I'm trying to think what it was called during this era, but at the end of the day,
is it the Fleet Center? No, we're in a different era. That's Boston.
It doesn't matter. So it's going to be 14, 15, 16, 17, 18,000 people. The thing that kind of was ingrained in all of our minds was the reason this show is so important is that we're going to have so many buys, which means our pay-per-view.
It was the first Union Center here, Jeff.
All right, sorry. First Union Center. That to me, Conrad, was again the DNA of the talent of a wrestler during this age, which has completely changed nowadays. I mean, the guys going into this weekend, there's not one person on the card that's thinking about, wow, there's going to be a lot of buys this weekend. I get it. Times have changed. In this era, we just came off of Monday Night Raw, and our live event pay at Toronto Skydome, whatever we called it back then, 36,000 people. I mean, there's some happy folks. I mean, I bet there were some fights backstage. Everybody wanted to be a dark match because you got paid on dark matches on Raw even more. So a dark match, a dark match on that type Raw. So this is a pay-per-view. The live crowd wasn't that big. The demand on our schedule, I can't tell you how many on sales and radio interviews and media days that you do throughout the year. This was kind of condensed. Me and Brian and others, a real highlight of WrestleMania week, Conrad, and it sounds so simple is, hey, guess what? We do one check in and one check out because, we're here for 3 days, 4 days. Raw, I don't even know where it would be. My guess from Philly would be an Allentown or Scranton or maybe going down to Baltimore. Anyway, a drive from Philly. But, the schedule and the autographs, our schedule wasn't so taxing that it just killed you. And you did, we would do like charity events and autograph sessions, but they kept us busy and kept us going, but it wasn't anything that was unmanageable. A guy like Austin, a babyface on this card that was either mid or up, their media schedule was kind of insane, if you will, because remember, the PR department was charged all about impressions, all about generating buys. It's so different nowadays.
Let's talk about Sunday Night Heat before WrestleMania gets started. It's a 21-man battle royal where the last two men earn a tag title shot. They go 4 minutes and 16 seconds. You're out doing commentary with Owen and Deborah. Other folks in the match are Public Enemy, Viscera, Gilbert, Animal, 8 Ball, Skull, Hawk, Scott Taylor, Farouk, Tiger Ali Singh, Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, Midian, Brian Christopher, Steve Blackman, Bradshaw, and Godfather and Draws. The last two men become D'Lo Brown and Test. So they're going to win and get a title shot, but that's not the entertaining part. It's Owen on commentary. Owen on commentary was hilarious, where he talks about these guys fatigue's really starting to set in. These guys have been fighting more than 20 minutes. As a reminder, the match went 4 minutes total. So that's a little tongue-in-cheek reference to how quick the match times are. He's having fun in his own way.
Oh, boy.
He's even getting a little jab in at Tiger Ali Singh. Watching this back to prepare for our WrestleMania 15 discussions on my different podcasts this week, it made me realize Owen would have been fantastic as a heel color commentator later in life. Would he not?
But when I tell you, this is such vintage Owen, a peek behind the curtain, as if he's sitting around a monitor with just talking to the boys. And, I don't know what episode it was that we've touched on. I had to do color commentary. And Vince was in my ear and he literally he was screaming. And look, Jim Ross, Michael Cole, you can go down a whole host of others, folks that sat in that seat. And I know Mick's got personal stories. I don't see how they kept it together from a mindset of delivering coherent words. But in this circumstance, Vince never said a word in our ear, but I remember just kind of the setup and Russo and whoever else said, "Oh, Owen, just go have fun with this." And I'm like, oh boy, all I got to do is follow Owen's lead, but you can't follow it. And so if I remember correctly, it was a lot of Michael Cole and Owen going back and forth.
So Jeff, I think I have this right. WrestleMania 15 wound up being your very last WrestleMania match, right?
How about that? Yeah. I wouldn't have thought that at the time. And again, just going back to the whole kind of era of it on how hot the business was. And, I've referenced this a couple of times, but I was just a second ago, I was talking about baby faces on the card and the statue, all this. Can you go over the card, just kind of the top matches? Because I'm going to point out something here. It's Taker, not Rock. Wait.
No, I'll rattle them off. Here you go. Jacqueline and Ivory, the tag team battle royal. Then the pay-per-view starts. Triple threat for the hardcore title. Hardcore Holly, Billy Gunn, and Al Snow. Then it's your tag match. You're out second on the actual pay-per-view. After you guys, it's Butterbean, devastating Bart Gunn in a Brawl for All match. Then it's Mankind and Big Show. Road Dogg in there against Goldust, Ken Shamrock, and Val Venus. It's a 4 corners elimination match for the IC title. Kane versus Triple H. Sable versus Tori. Shane versus X-Pac. Undertaker versus Big Boss Man in a really bad Hell in a Cell match where we hung a guy. And in the main event, The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin.
And when you hear that, I don't think you would say, I just talked about merchandise earlier and all that, but the number 2 merch seller that night was the Road Dogg Jesse James.
Wow.
And I've said that kind of story before, but I remember, obviously we were on early and showering, we were backstage, and it was getting toward the end of the night, but Miranda walked by, and I would always, from a business perspective, hey man, how is it out that? Oh, we've done record numbers here and there, and we had stands outside. And, those days you didn't always have the pop-up tents. Again, all of where we're at today, a lot of it didn't exist. But I remember him spinning around and saying something to the effect, your boy or our boy or whatever it is, Road Dogg number 2. And there was 2 different shirts. Like, we sold out every stand in the arena. And just kind of the Attitude Era and just the flavor of the industry at the time. I really remember this January through this April, I was having a blast. And I think last week, speaking of Road Dogg, I told you about a story that we had our appearances and autograph sessions and charity appearances we had to do. But I remember we were going to go out, and so the show would be on a Sunday. So this would have been on a Friday. And we went to one night establishment to another night establishment. And I remember you just kind of bouncing around, and Brian says, hey man, we're leaving. We're going to some after party. And I'm like, okay, how are we getting there? There's a ride outside for us. We're like, okay. And it's pouring down rain, Conrad. And we're trying to figure out whose actually car we're supposed to get in, because I guess there was a group of it. And this guy jumps out of this, Brian called it the Scooby van, but it was like a custom built out. It's not a hotel shuttle van, but it was a bit, what do you call those?
Sprinter?
Huh?
A Sprinter?
No, not a Sprinter. No, that's way too fancy, but it's like a custom made van that, had the slide door and had TVs.
Oh, yeah. Old school. Like, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, one of those. And anyhow, so all of a sudden, yeah, we're getting in that van, and they wave us, and we run through, because it's one of those, we're in an underhang. But
Econo line, that's what I was looking for.
That's it. Okay. Anyway, the doors slid open, and I think X-Pac was with us, but me, Brian, and X-Pac jumped in this van, had no clue what it was. And sitting in the back of the van was Big Pun.
Wow. How about that?
And you know how at this time he was red hot, but Big Pun was Big Pun. And we rode and through the streets of Philly and went to the next place, and Pun didn't come in, but some of his guys did. And we went to this place, and I said, Brian, what in the world? And he goes, you don't know who that was. And I'm like, no. And I couldn't really get a good look at him. There was, I don't know, 6 or 7 of us in there. But then he went on to say that. And I think, unfortunately, he passed away in the next year or 2 after that. But yeah, if you ever get a chance.
Yeah, he died in February the following year. I mean, he wouldn't. It's crazy to think, how quickly.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, ask Brian about Big Pun.
Can't wait. The match is here. I can't believe of all the. Do I have this right? You only wrestled 2 WrestleMania matches, 11 against Razor, and then this one.
Yep. Because I was gone. My bouncing always kind of.
Well, you were at 14, just not working.
Correct.
Yeah, but yeah, 2 matches. Of course, the one with Razor was super fun. This one just feels a little weird because it's not D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry. Our suitable replacement for Mark Henry, the other fellow who helped win the Battle Royal, is Test. So it's Owen and Jeff against Test and D'Lo. You're going to get the win over D'Lo in a whopping 3 minutes and 57 seconds. You see there the interest if you're watching with us on YouTube. Deborah got a blazer on and a really fancy swimsuit. I don't even know if you'd call it that. It's like something you'd wear in a pageant. Meltzer would say this. Owen said that Owen considers Jarrett the best tag team partner he's ever had, aka better than Brett and Bulldog. D'Lo appears to have gained some weight, which may be why he looked a step slower than just a few months ago. D'Lo hit the lowdown on Jarrett at 3.5 minutes. Owen stops the pin. Deborah then gets on the ring apron to distract D'Lo. Ivory's going to yank Deborah to the floor. PMS comes to ringside. D'Lo sets Jarrett up for a pile driver. Owen surprises D'Lo with a drop kick off the top rope. Jarrett flips over D'Lo and scores the pin. Nice finish. D'Lo yells at Test after the match for being distracted by the women and not being there to save him. Okay match, but not long enough to develop into anything substantial. 1.5 stars. Lot to unpack here. First of all, it's really fast. It's under 4 minutes. Were you and Owen disappointed in the match and the placement and just the way the cookie crumbled, or is that just part of the business?
Well, and I'm going back to this was the era then you didn't have much expectations on it because even though it was WrestleMania, if I remember correctly, it was still a 3-hour block. You try to put 8 matches, 9 matches in a 3-hour block, do the math. It's impossible. And especially with a Mania, you have to give time for entrances and pageantry and, the cage match on this show. It again, back to kind of a running, I guess you could say slogan amongst folks. Hey guys, do the math. There's not enough time here. Even into the TNA days when we would, the monthly pay-per-views, once you get past 7, you're out of time. But a lot of times that's just how the arcs work when you're trying to produce a 2 and 3 hour television show.
I'm not asking you to tell me the number. Were you disappointed in the payoff? Do you recall being happy or okay?
No. And again, those Raws and which were TVs and getting good payoff, then you get into those house show loops, the Garden, maybe Fleet Center, Boston, Philadelphia. We were all making really good money.